if you own a firearm in Canada right now, something has changed, and the odds are good that nobody has told you about it yet. Not your gun club, not the range where you shoot on weekends, not even the store where you bought your last rifle. In May 2026, the Supreme Court of Canada handed down a ruling that did not arrive with fanfare or a government press release. There was no primetime announcement. There was no mass notification sent to PAL holders. But what happened inside the courtroom is already reshaping how firearm laws are applied on the streets, in your driveway, at your front door, and inside your home. 8 specific things about how you live as a gun owner in this country have shifted, and if you are still operating under the old rules, you are carrying legal risk you cannot see yet. So whether you have held a PAL for 20 years or you just passed your CFSC last month, whether you are a hunter, a competitive shooter, a collector, or someone who simply keeps a shotgun in the closet for home protection, you need to hear every single one of these 8 things before you do anything else today, because the people who do not hear this in time are the ones who end up in court wondering how a legal firearm turned into a criminal charge. The Supreme Court of Canada did not write new legislation. Parliament did not pass a new bill. What the court did was clarify, in binding legal language, how existing firearm laws are to be interpreted going forward. That distinction sounds technical, but the practical effect is enormous. It means that laws you thought you understood, rules you thought you were following, and assumptions you have made for years about what is acceptable are now being read through a completely different lens. The court addressed how your rights under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms interact with the government's authority to regulate firearms in the name of public safety, and the answer the court gave was direct. While individual rights are acknowledged, the government holds exceptionally wide authority to regulate firearms, and that authority will be applied with growing force. What the court essentially did was tilt the scales, and for gun owners, that tilt has consequences in 8 very specific and immediate areas of daily life. The first area is storage. Canada has had storage requirements on the books for a long time, and most PAL holders know the basics. Lock it up, trigger lock, secured cabinet, ammunition separate. 4 years, following those basics was generally considered enough. The Supreme Court has now changed what the word reasonable actually means when it comes to storage, and that change is not minor. The court made clear that storage must be robust enough to prevent unauthorized access in realistic, everyday life situations. Think about what that looks like in practice. Your nephew visits for the weekend. He is 17. He notices where you keep the key because he watched you open the closet once, while you are out running errands. He finds the key in the kitchen drawer and takes out the rifle. Nothing catastrophic happens, but a neighbor sees it and calls police. Under the previous interpretation, you might have received a caution. Under this ruling, you are potentially facing criminal charges because your storage did not prevent access by an unauthorized person, and the court has now said that preventing that access is your legal responsibility. Full stop. Go through your storage setup today, not next week, because the standard just moved and your habits need to catch up immediately. The second area is transport. You have your authorization. You have your locked case. You are heading to the range. Everything feels routine. The problem is that the court has now reinforced that transporting a restricted firearm is a serious legal responsibility evaluated from the moment you leave your home to the moment you return. Any stop that is not strictly necessary, any detour from your planned route, is now a moment of real legal exposure. Stopping for gas and grabbing a coffee on the way to the range once felt perfectly reasonable. Under the court's current framework, that unplanned stop can be pointed to as a breach of your transport conditions. Plan your route before you leave. Avoid unnecessary stops. Keep your documentation immediately accessible, and treat every minute of that drive as though it is being evaluated, because under this ruling, it effectively is. The third area is your PAL renewal, and this is the change that will blindside the most people because it reaches back into history they thought was completely behind them. The court strengthened the authority of the chief firearms officer to deny or revoke a PAL based on public safety considerations that are not necessarily tied to a firearms-related offense. A domestic dispute call from 5 years ago where no charges were filed can be enough. A wellness check that police responded to can be enough. You do not have to have been convicted of anything. The concern alone, if it can be articulated, is sufficient grounds under the current interpretation. Before you submit your next renewal, pull your own record, understand what is in it, and if there is anything that could raise a flag, consult a lawyer before you submit, not after you receive a denial. The fourth area is law enforcement authority at your door. The court has made it considerably easier and faster for police to establish the grounds needed to inspect your firearm storage when a credible public safety concern has been raised. Someone sees a photo you posted online and makes a call. Officers arrive and ask to inspect your storage. Under the previous framework, declining generally meant they had to leave and begin a formal warrant process. Under the current framework, if officers can articulate a safety concern, the bar for proceeding is lower and the timeline is faster. You still have rights, but the balance has shifted. The best protection you have is never giving anyone a reason to make that call in the first place. The fifth area concerns firearm classification. If a model you purchased legally as non-restricted was later reclassified as prohibited and you missed the notification, not knowing is now far less of a defense than it once was. The court signaled that owners carry a positive duty to stay current on the legal status of every firearm in their possession. Go through your entire collection. Cross-reference every serial number against the current RCMP firearms classification database. And if anything has changed, contact the Canadian Firearms Program immediately on your own initiative before anyone comes to you. The sixth area is record keeping. Even though there is no formal registry for non-restricted long guns, the ruling reinforced that owners must be able to demonstrate the lawful origin and transfer of every firearm they possess. An informal trade at the range with no paperwork, no bill of sale, no written record, is now a gap in your documentation that can be used against you if that firearm ever surfaces in an investigation. Start a logbook today. Record every acquisition and every transfer. Retain your bills of sale. Treat it with the same discipline you would give a financial record. The seventh and eighth areas combine into a single critical reality about consequences. The court made clear that firearm-related offenses will be treated with escalating seriousness and that penalties can build on one another well beyond the original incident. Forgetting your authorization to transport at home during a routine traffic stop is no longer likely to produce a warning. It is far more likely to produce charges, a seized firearm, a suspended PAL, and a legal process that costs you time, money, and potentially your ability to own firearms permanently. Check your paperwork before every single trip. Keep copies of your ATT, your registration certificates, and your PAL in multiple locations. One forgotten document can unravel everything you have built as a responsible owner. The Supreme Court of Canada did not rewrite the rulebook in May 2026, but it fundamentally changed how every page of that rulebook is read, applied, and enforced. The practical reality of being a firearm owner in Canada has shifted, and the vast majority of owners have not heard about it yet. Look at your storage, your transport habits, your documentation, and your renewal history. Correct anything that needs correcting before it becomes a problem, because the answers that worked before may no longer be acceptable the next time you are asked. Share this with every PAL holder you know, and if you want to stay ahead of changes like this one, subscribe to Canada Pension News Bulletin, because the rules are not going to stop changing, and the owners who stay informed are the ones who stay out of trouble.